Hi, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I have been playing around with the Czech SuperDuos. So the SuperDuos are a 2-hole bead, and they're round in shape. They're 2.5 by 5 millimeter. And what I've been making out of them is just a quick bangle. It doesn't require anything else other than the SuperDuos. Looks nice in multiple colors, and I'm going to do it in 2 colors because it's a little bit easier to actually see what I'm doing. This is also a bangle. You can choose to put ends on it, but I'll also show you how to sew it together. So when you're looking at it, you just roll it on, it's a bangle, and you're done to go. So to start out, what we're doing is I have threaded 2 needles on a long piece of string, and what this thread is Wildfire .008, and I'm using size 12 English beading needles. I have about 3 feet of thread. It's going to be more than I need, but I always like to have extra. I have started by putting my first bead, my copper bead, onto my needles, and it's going, both needles are going through. So 1 hole, 1 needle, 1 hole, 1 needle. And then what I've done is I've put a silver bead, just one of the holes, and a silver bead. So I'm constantly putting on 1 copper, 2 silvers, 1 copper, 2 silvers, 1 copper, and I'm going to continue that way the whole way. I have found it easiest to keep my project kind of up near the top of my needles, and then what I can do is just pick up my next bead, slide it onto my needles. You just got to be careful that you don't poke yourself. And, oops, I have 1 copper on. I'm going to put silver on the right side and silver on the left side. And then what I do is I add another copper bead. And the copper again is going on both needles, whereas the silver, I'm putting on 2 silvers, so one's just going to one side, one to the other. What I can do then is drop that down, pull my thread through, and at the bottom, what you're going to see is this little stack going on. It actually looks pretty as a bracelet on its own. You can stick little 8O beads in between there if you want. And you are going to see a tiny bit of thread there at the bottom of the SuperDuo when you're looking at it. I'm going to continue with this the whole way until I get the circumference that I want. When you're thinking of circumference for this bracelet, what you want to do is ball your fist up, and you want to make sure that it's going to go over the widest part of your hand and slip on. So I'm going to continue to string on my beads. Okay, I have strung all of my beads now, and you'll notice that I have doubled the amount of silver that I do copper, because for every silver bead that I put on, or every 2 silver beads, I put 1 copper on. So I'm done stringing this. Mine ended up being about 7.5 inches. Normally you want to probably have about 8 inches on. If you have a smaller wrist, you can get away with less. But again, you want to make sure that it's going to fit over your palm. I'm starting at the other end then, the beginning end. So I put a bead stopper on the other end. I still have my long tails attached. Originally when I did this bracelet, I turned the thread back over and I did it with 1 piece of thread. It became too taut and too tight. So what I did for the second one that I did, and it actually snapped. So what I've done for this second one and the other ones that I've done now is I used 2 pieces of thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic my start bead, and I'm going to put on 1 of my copper beads, and again I'm going to put that on both needles and drop that down to the bottom of my thread. So you will see the thread at the bottom of that copper bead. Another thing that I forgot to say is I end with the opposite of what I start with. If you're doing, you start with 1 bead, you're going to be ending on your 2 beads because it's going to go tubular. So I have my 1 twin on here, or my SuperDuo. You can do it with twins too. Any 2-hole bead will actually work. And what I'm going to do now is, as I go, I'm going to pick up the side of my other bead that's there and pull that the whole way through. And then on the other side, I'm going to take the other needle. So I'm still working with 2 needles, and it's a new piece of thread again. And I am going to sew this one through the other side. What this is going to do then is pull it so that it is rounded. So it takes my duos from sitting to the sides to upright. Now every time I go through my silver, I'm going to add another copper bead onto my needles, drop them down into place next to the copper bead below it, and then again what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up this silver bead that's laying on the side, put my needle through it, pull it out, and do the same thing on the other side with the other needle. So this side's a little bit, or this one's a little bit tedious. It's little steps of turning the bead up, sewing through, and then adding another copper bead. And I'm going to continue doing this my whole length of my bracelet, and then I will show you how to connect the ends. So I've gotten done my two ends here, and when I get done them, I want to make sure that it is able to stretch out and that it is flexible. I don't want it pulled too tight, or what's going to happen is the bracelet is going to snap. When I have the ends here, I end with all of my 4 threads coming out the end of my bracelet. Again, ending with 2 different styles. So I started with the copper, and I'm ending with the silver. If you do all the same color, it won't matter what you end and start with. What I'm going to do is I pick up my needle that is at the top of my duo here, and I'm going to string my needle through the same hole on the other side, as if I was just continuing in my bracelet. And what that's going to do is that's going to pull it tight and get it closed. I'm going to take all the threads then. I'm going to take my needle on my other duo here, and I'm going to look where it lines up. And it is lining up here at the top, and then I'm going to sew through the next hole and then go through the top 1, 2, 3, just pull my thread out. And I'm going to continue that for all 4 of my threads that are hanging out. That's going to join my bracelet. There's the 2 at the top. I'm going to flip and do the 2 at the bottom as well and join those ends. What I like to do is tie knots then. So these 2, I'll tie a square knot, right over left, left over right, do a little dab of glue and burn down my ends. On the other side, I might take them back a little further so my knots aren't ending right at the same beads. But that's going to get you your SuperDuo bangle. Have fun making it. Make it in lots of colors, lots of designs. Here I used 4 different colors and kind of alternated them. Here I did color blocks, and I have the golds and the tones. You can also, like I said, do it with the twin beads, but I like the colors better of these SuperDuos, and they are a great bangle. You can load them up, wear a lot at one time. They're a little bit tribal looking, but they are fun to make and quick. So thanks for watching, and have fun.